I'm Costas Apostolides. I'm an economist. I work for the Planning Bureau. I'm also a United Nations consultant with experience in 10 countries. And I'm teaching negotiation at the University of Malta.
My name is Costas and Alex Apostolides. I'm a lecturer of economics and economic history at the European University Cyprus and a member of the National Economic Council. My views here are my own.
What I'm proposing is that going back to the Cyprus pound has to be studied seriously because, most importantly, it preserves our sovereignty, our ability to move freely.
There is no sovereignty since we decided to be part of Europe. Being part of Europe means you give part of your sovereignty. We think that Europe is the only way we can grow looking ahead in the future. It's the only market that's really open to Cyprus since the biggest and most emerging market in the area is Turkey, and we haven't solved the issues with Turkey.
I believe that without growth, we cannot get out of this mess. So we have to be able to produce systems which develop growth. And that is extremely difficult to do with a troika that is austerity oriented. None of the austerity programs have been successful, not even Ireland in terms of economics. They're only considered successful relatively in relation to getting back to the markets to fund government bonds. But in terms of economics, their unemployment is as bad as ours, if not worse.
I accept that austerity hasn't worked, but let's be clear, if we have our own currency, we'll need more austerity, at least in the beginning. So if austerity is the problem, this is not the solution. The solution is that someone decides to print euros, but that is out of our hands. It was always out of our hands. It will always remain out of our hands. We cannot leave the Eurozone on our own. They should let us leave the Eurozone, which means basically giving us the okay to leave, which means they will take losses on the loans that they have given us, which we already have taken. And this is important. It means that literally they will be happy to take losses, which they haven't, no one in the Troika has shown that willingness. So they have to let us go. They're not willing to let us go. Going without asking will mean basically that we become as worse than Iran in terms of sanctions, because then all our Cypriot companies can be sued in any European country in order to take back what the Cyprus state owes to them.
So Costa, you're basically arguing for us to study an exit from the euro, to have it for when conditions improve, not to do it now.
No, also for 18 months from now, if the projections made by others, not by us, prove to be realistic, because that's going to be a serious problem 18 months from now. So we will be back again in difficult negotiations, and we have to prepare now and see the options.
But you both agree that right now it's a bad idea.
Yes, because the precondition that it be an agreed velvet type.
And let's be clear,
it's not there.
The exit has not been ruled out necessarily by this government actually, but with the previous one, right?
Yes.
From the moment Christofias government borrowed this ELA, which reached 11 billion, which is more than 50% of our GDP, it's about 80%, it stopped us even having it on the table.
If you leave the Eurozone, you have your two major markets, which are very clearly now the United Kingdom and Russia, and they're both outside of the Eurozone. So if you proceed with a calculated, measured initial devaluation of, say, 15%, and then peg to sterling after that, you should aim for stability at that level. What does that do? That gives you an initial advantage in tourism, which is the key factor in bringing in currency, and international business. I do not think international business changes with prices very easily. What they're looking for is tax advantages and the quality of the services offered and the legal basis. So I think it's tourism the key sector to be affected. Both those markets will benefit. They will give us an initial push, which is what we need right now. And the other thing is we will have the freedom of movement to create growth policies, which we don't at the moment.
My real concern is exactly that this short-term target of stability is impossible without extra loan from the IMF. And since one of the loans we right now are going to stop paying when we leave, because when we leave it's impossible to keep paying in euros, will be the IMF loan. I'm seriously worried whether they'll come around and give us a balance of payments support loan, which is what you need to basically peg your currency relative to another currency, right? Last but not least, my real concern is this is not leaving a currency peg. It's not that we have a currency and we just decide we're going to change it. This means bringing in new currency. Every time it has happened, it has only happened 7 times in history. With all but one exception, you had to make a bigger deposit haircut than we did in our banking system. Because clearly the government will need to be in balance very quickly. It will need assets very quickly. The only assets it can find is in people's bank accounts. So if you think bailing out 2 banks would be a problem, I'm worried that if we leave the euro, we'll need to bail in all the banks, or at least a proportion of all the money in the bank. And even if we don't bail them in, we will shift, let's say, from euros to Cyprus pounds. Then suddenly, since we depreciate, the value of that Cyprus pound, what they can buy, what people can import, will be dramatically reduced.
We're also being told that selling our gold reserves is going to make it very difficult to exit the euro in the future.
Yes, I think that's why we are asked to do it. Let's be clear. Even I'm pro-euro. I realize that the deal they gave us are so rotten. The gap between the damage you do by staying in the euro, which is less, and the damage leaving, which is more, has narrowed significantly, right? Because the deal is very, very rotten. So clearly someone's looking at this and they are also worried. They're forcing us to sell the gold for the simple reason that they realize it's an exit. It's a possibility, which, okay, it's bad for us, but it will be bad for them because they have elections in 9 months and they've never lost a cent. Whatever you hear in the German press, it's true they gave in money to everybody, but they've never lost a cent. If we do leave, it's the first time they'll have losses. And I don't know how much fiscal conservative governments can keep up this charade of austerity if they start having losses that affect them at home as well. I disagree. I completely disagree. I again disagree respectfully.
I was the generation that helped plan the recovery after 1974.
I don't want to go back to the Magarios days where basically what Magarios said, Magarios did.
This is not how it was.
And we're father and son, so we talk about this all the time.
We argue all the time.
Yes, but it's clear that through talking, you learn. So I think what's important is for listeners to understand that, you should talk about it and you should really not attack each other, but see what's feasible. And through it, you find what are our options right now. I really think so.
I would agree with you.